Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to talk about how to know if an Amish woman is married or not. Now, this is a topic that I would have never thought of myself, but it was brought up by one of my good friends and she was curious as to how people know who's married and who's not. And I was like, you know what, that would actually be an interesting topic because I didn't think about it, but it is kind of interesting how they tell the difference between married and unmarried women. So you know what? Today we're going to talk about that. And I know we're all missing Tawe. I know we had fun with him in the last two videos, but he will be back later. As you all know, out here we're used to men and women wearing rings like this if they're married or not. And a lot of times that's how you're going to know that somebody's married. But Amish people do not believe in jewelry. They can't wear any type of jewelry at all. So that also means no wedding bands, no wedding rings, period. So how do you tell? For me, since I'm Amish, I know immediately. It's not even a question about who's married or who's not. But I do understand how it can be confusing for somebody who isn't knowledgeable or who didn't grow up knowing those rules and knowing what they mean. So one of the only places that you're really gonna need to know if an Amish woman is married or not is at church, because during the week they're at home with their husbands, their families. They don't really hang out with anybody else. They're just at home busy doing the housework, the cooking, the baking, the gardening, and all of that, minding their own business. But at church is really when you're gonna need to know if somebody's married or not. So we're gonna start there. So once Amish women get married, they have to start wearing white head coverings to church. Now, they're gonna be the only ones wearing white head coverings. The ones that are single or the ones that are still dating, they're gonna be wearing black silk head coverings. And also, you're never really gonna need to know if an Amish man is married or not, because as we all know, the women don't approach the men approach the women. And that's how all that dating life, all that marriage stuff gets started. But if you did wanna know if an Amish man is married or not, you could tell by what type of hat he wears or what type of facial hair he has, or if he has any facial hair, because Amish men, once they're married, they cannot cut their beard, they can't trim it, they can't do anything with it, so it just grows out however it wants to. And let's say it just grows out in patches and it's like ugly. They can't do anything. They can't trim it, they can't make it look nicer, they can't do anything like that. But before Amish men get married, they don't grow out their beard. Now they can if they want to, but they usually don't. And they can trim it and do whatever they want with it, basically. They just can't do any of that once they're married. Now I don't remember the specific number of inches that the hat brim can be for men once they're married or before they're married, but I do know that they have a specific number in inches of how wide that brim can be measured. One of those rules again. And also, Amish men cannot grow their mustaches. The only facial hair that they can have is the beard. And also, another way to tell is that in Amish churches, they have specific seating arrangements for the married or single men and women. The married women are always going to be the first ones to be seated. They're always going to sit in the kitchen. Now, the older married ladies who don't have any kids anymore with them, they're going to be seated in the living room. But all the other married ladies are going to be sitting in the kitchen with their little kids. And also, they're going to be seated as soon as they get there. Church services are always going to start at 9 a.m. on Sunday mornings, and that's every other Sunday. And also, church services are held at people's houses. They don't have like a church building or place or anything like that. Every family that's part of the church is going to take turns to have the services at their house. So every 2 weeks, it just keeps going in circles like that. And if somebody can't have church services for some reason, they're just gonna skip over that, and then the next time they're gonna have it twice at their house. But anyway, at 9 a.m. the ministers, the bishops are gonna start going into the house. They're gonna go shake hands with all the women that are sitting in there, and then they're gonna go take their seats. And then the married men are gonna come in and they're gonna sit in the living room. And the single men are also gonna sit in the living room. And then after that, the single women are gonna come in and they're gonna sit in the living room until it's filled up, and then the rest are gonna sit in the kitchen. But yeah, usually for the most part, it's only gonna be the married women and their children that are sitting in the kitchen. Also, the single men and women are gonna be sitting opposite sides of the living room of each other. I'm specifically only mentioning the weekends because regardless if you're married or not, that's the only time that you're gonna be hanging out with everybody else or with people that you could potentially date or get married to. And unlike out here, there's not really such a thing as hitting on somebody. Like, you can't just approach somebody and ask them to go out with you. Well, you can't even really go out with people because that's not how their dating process works. But usually how their dating process works is that after church services, which usually ends at around between 12 and 2 p.m. And then after that, the men and women that are not married usually go to somebody's house for dinner, and then they go to the singing at 9 p.m. And now I'm sure you're wondering what a singing is, but I will explain it in just a moment. So a singing is for Amish men and women that are not married, to give them a chance to meet, but they don't really meet though. I guess they see each other. They're in the same room and they sing the Amish hymns and stuff for several hours. And I mean, they can talk, but Amish people are shy. And usually they don't really talk to each other that much. But they're gonna sit around the table with men on one side, the females on the other side, and sing for several hours, and they can chat too. It's just that they don't usually do that much. And then afterwards is when they get matched up. Like, now I've never really seen an Amish guy go up to a girl and ask her to be his girlfriend. Now, maybe it's happened. I'm just saying I haven't seen it happen. But usually what happens is they match people up. And how they do that is, so the guys decide which of the guys is going to get matched up that night. And then they also decide which girl is going to be matched up with that guy. You see how the guys just control everything? They literally control everything. And then they go ask that girl, and usually it's a big fight. The girl will try to hide or just flat out refuse if it's somebody that she really absolutely doesn't want to go out with. But for the most part, they at least match up. And then if they want to continue dating after that, they do, or if they don't, they don't. But if they do agree to be matched up, the guy will drive the girl to her house, and guess what happens then? Yes, he spends the night. I'm as lost as you are, because how's that supposed to work? Like, they just expect them to just talk? I've never understood that part of the Amish dating process. I never did it myself because I left shortly after I was old enough to start dating. But yeah, that process doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I can only imagine what really goes down in that room. And actually, I was talking about that with one of my cousins when I was in Nebraska the beginning of July. We were talking about it, how that's supposed to happen, because sometimes even if the girl really does not want to be matched up with that guy, they will force her. Like, the guys will come and grab her basically and push her onto the buggy with the guy that they're matching her up with, and hold her on there until they're on the road. Like, maybe it's just because we're not Amish anymore and we're out here living in this world where something like that would just not be okay, period. But how is that not abusive? Like, how is that okay? And then sometimes, depending on who the guy is, he will just take her to her house and just drop her off because he knows that she isn't interested. But there's also those guys that really like this girl and they have a crush on her, and they insist on going up to her room and try to convince her to let him stay. Like, how is that okay? And even as a parent, knowing that a guy can just walk into your house, go up to your daughter's room, and try to convince her to let him stay the night. I'm sorry, I couldn't. All of that just sounds so wrong. I couldn't do that. But luckily, all the girls that I know that had that specific incident happen to them, they didn't give in and they insisted that the guy leave, and they ended up making him leave. But my cousin told me a story about it was two of my cousins where just the middle of the night, two guys, they were brothers, just showed up at their house, and it was storming that night. It was raining. They just showed up. They walked right into the house, up to their rooms, and tried to convince them and insisted they're gonna stay. They're like, it's raining out there, just go with it. Like, what even is that? But my cousins kicked them out real quick, which good for them. That should just not be okay. And it shouldn't even be a thing, you know? And then another thing that they do after the singings is tomcatting, which I know a couple videos ago I told you guys I would explain what tomcatting is. Well, here it is. And to be honest, if you don't understand it, trust me, I have been trying to understand it and to understand the point of it. Some of this stuff was the Amish dating process. I swear, I don't even understand it. And I was supposed to date like that. I was supposed to get married like that. And I don't even understand it. So who's really supposed to understand it? But what tomcatting is, it usually happens with a couple that is already dating, already going steady. But sometimes they will tomcat to people on the same night that they match them up. So that could be a scenario where the girl isn't interested at all, or the guy isn't interested. So for tomcatting, I'm gonna explain a scenario where this is a couple that has been dating for a while, they're going steady and all of that. So the guy is at the girl's house in her room, visiting her that night, and some of the youth group shows up. And this could be a mixture of guys and girls, it really doesn't matter, but usually the guys are leading it. And they push them onto a bed and they tie them into a bed sheet. And usually the couple will fight this, but they fight them onto the blanket and then they tie them into the bed sheet. What the point of this is, I don't know, but I remember being there one time when they did this, and this was for my brother and his girlfriend. Well, she's now his wife. But I remember she was so embarrassed that all this is happening. She was fighting it like really hard, but they finally got them tied up and they're like squished together in the blanket. And then they leave them there for a couple minutes and they can untie themselves whenever they want. But like, what's the point of tying them together? Maybe it's just to get them that close and uncomfortable. I don't know. I don't understand the point of it myself. So it's hard to explain the whole point of it to you guys. But if one of you guys know the point of it, please let me know in the comments, because I'm curious about this too. And obviously the couple isn't going to be covered completely with the sheets. They're just going to be like, usually they're just like tied together around the waist. But I remember one of the other girls in that group said something that night about how that's just messed up, because what if the girl got pregnant from that? Which also goes to show that I am not the only Amish girl who didn't really know how somebody gets pregnant. Because first of all, she couldn't possibly get pregnant from that. But do you get what I'm saying though? Like, it just goes to show that Amish people really don't be telling them how babies are conceived. Because if somebody thinks that they could get pregnant from being that close to a guy, this is what I'm saying though, that whole thing should be explained to people. Like, these are 18, 20-year-old people and they still don't know how babies are conceived. Like, they're adults, they need to know. And also, if you're Amish, you're never gonna have to question whether somebody is married or not. You will always just know. If you won't know any other way, you will usually know because you were at their wedding. But anyway, that's everything for this week. I will see you guys next week and we will talk about some more crazy Amish stuff. And if you do have any questions about this or about the Amish, please leave it in the comments and I will get back to you. And who knows, your question might end up being a topic that I didn't even think about discussing. So please leave a comment. Thank you. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to hear more of my story. And also follow me on TikTok at IdaMachiva1 and on Instagram at IdaChooseHappiness. I will be posting videos and answering some questions on both of those platforms as well.